Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jackie, and today we're going to be looking at VAT and running the VAT return from start to finish. Today's the first of 3 webinars. We are running 2 more this afternoon, one at 2 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock today. So we're going to be looking at festive messaging and also age reports this afternoon. So if you are interested in those sessions and you want to get yourself signed up, by all means pop something into the questions panel and we'll get you a link to register for those today. However, like I say, we're going to be looking at VAT this morning, and I'm joined by Michael, Tina and Abby. They're all on hand to answer any questions that you may have. So if you do have your questions, please do submit them to the team throughout the session. Don't feel you've got to wait till the end of the session for your questions today, because they are on hand throughout. Just before we begin though, we'll just quickly do some housekeeping. Okay, so first of all, you will notice that you yourself are placed on mute, and that's just so that we don't have you all speaking to us all at the same time there. So if you do have your questions, we do recommend to use that questions panel. You can open that using the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that opens the questions panel there. We do also have a handout for today. So the handout is the icon that looks like a document with a folded corner, and you can use that to download the slides that we're going to go through today as well. But today we will also be using a demonstration. So if you do want to catch up on the demonstration, then there will be a recording as well, also available shortly after today's session as well. Okay, so this is what we're going to be going through today. So first of all, before we start, we will be running a very quick poll just to get some information from you all around where you're joining us from today. I will then be showing you how to activate Making Tax Digital. So this is for those based in the UK and for those who haven't yet activated Making Tax Digital. Okay, so we have currently gone through some landmark dates with Making Tax Digital. So we just want to show you how you can activate that in the software. And then we are going to run through the VAT return from start to finish. Okay, so we're going to go right through from the beginning to the end, showing you each of the features and hopefully highlighting some of those features that people often question when they're ringing up technical support. And at the end there, I will give you a very quick demonstration of what a Making Tax Digital submission looks like, just so if you haven't done one yet, you know what to expect there. And if we do have any final questions, then we'll round those up towards the end for you. But just before we begin, like I said, we do have a very quick poll, which I'm just going to pop on the screen there now. And I just want to know if you're joining us from the UK doing a UK return, or if we do have anyone joining us from Ireland today doing an Irish VAT return. So I'm just going to pop that poll over. If you can pop something into the box there, that would be great. If we do have anyone from Ireland joining us, we will tweak the session slightly to highlight the differences for you. We've got a few votes coming through there, so I'll just give that a moment or two just so I can get a good picture of who is joining us today. Fabulous, they're starting to come through there. Okay, we're hitting the magic 75% votes there. I like to get a good picture of who's joining us today. So I'll close it down there. Don't worry if you haven't voted. Certainly not hold it against you today. But just to give you an idea, the majority of you are joining us from the UK. So doing a UK VAT return, so 79% of you. But we do have a small portion of you doing a Republic of Ireland return. So we will, where we can, highlight the differences for the Republic of Ireland return today for you. So I'm just going to hide that poll there. Now, obviously today we are demonstrating one VAT return, so we've had to pick one or the other. So we are going to be showing you a UK return, but like I say, most of the principles we're going to talk to you today about are very much the same, just you will have some slightly different boxes, and obviously Making Tax Digital doesn't apply to you just yet. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so first of all, this first bit here is purely for those of you that are joining us from the UK, and it's all around Making Tax Digital. So if you try to submit for your software now, a non-Making Tax Digital return, you will be greeted with this message that you can see on the screen there. Okay, so what you do need to do at this point in time, the portal was in fact closed at the beginning of November. So all submissions now should be a Making Tax Digital submission unless HMRC have told you otherwise. So what you will need to do is you will need to log on to your HMRC account and check to see if you have yet been registered for Making Tax Digital. Now, HMRC have made moves in the past couple of days to start signing up businesses automatically who haven't yet registered for Making Tax Digital. And that's just to simplify the process for you. So if you're finding yourself in that position where you haven't yet registered yourself, HMRC might have registered for you. So please do log into your Making Tax Digital account and check the status of your account. Once you know that your account with HMRC is in fact registered for Making Tax Digital, what you will then need to do is switch it on within your software. So we'll show you that in just a moment once we go into the live demonstration. Like I say, this particular element, this does not apply to the Republic of Ireland, so you don't need to worry about activating anything just yet. Okay, so this is where we're just going to pop onto the live demonstration, and I'll show you that one first. Just pop into my demonstration data there for you. Bear with me. Okay, great. There's loads of questions coming through already, so fabulous. Keep the team busy. Quite a few already coming through there. Okay, so just pop you back onto my demonstration data. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just how to activate Making Tax Digital. So to do this, you need to go into Settings, Company Preferences, and within here there is a VAT tab. Just pop my password in, you'll need to log in. Again, just opened on the other screen. And as you can see within here, we've got a VAT tab. And in here, what we need to make sure is that we've got the correct VAT registration number entered. And it's this tick box here. So I'm basically saying at this point that I've declared to HMRC that I'm ready for Making Tax Digital. And I'm now telling my software to submit through this new portal. And it's as simple as that. So ticking that box takes it off the old system, which is no longer working, and is now directing us to that new portal. So let's jump into the actual processing of a VAT return now. And this is pretty much the same, regardless of if you're in Ireland or in the UK. So I'm just going to pop into the VAT screen. And like I said, what we're going to try and do along the way is we're going to try and highlight some of the points that cause a lot of questions with our customers or calls into technical support as well. So as you can see, I'm in my VAT window and you can see that I've got all of my previous VAT returns. Whichever I wanted to view them, I can click into them. I can look at the previous values. I can add attachments. I can view verification results. I can print everything off. So I can go back into my previous returns and get everything I need to, should I need to provide anything to HMRC or for audit purposes. Now, one of the key things we do get through to technical support, which is a really simple fix, is quite often we'll get customers in this window clicking on VAT return and it pulling up the last VAT return or a different VAT return, when in fact what they're looking for is a blank return. So what we need to do, is a really simple fix, but it's very easily done at the same time, is just make sure if we're doing a new VAT return that nothing's highlighted in the window. So swap and clear are great for this. So if I just click clear, it removes anything I've highlighted. Okay, now believe it or not, that is a good a good call generator into technical support. And like I say, it is very easily done. So within here, you can see that my last return here was my July to September return. And I'm doing quarterly returns, but you might be on a monthly basis, and there is also an annual basis as well. It doesn't matter which one you're using, you just need to specify the right dates when you're calculating the VAT return itself. So I'm just going to clear again, make sure I don't have this highlighted. And today we're going to generate our VAT return for October to the end of December. We're going to imagine that we have completed our December processing in this case. So to do this, we're going to go into VAT return. And that takes us into the VAT return. And when we refer to doing your VAT return in 3 simple steps, these are the 3 steps that we're referring to. So there are 3 steps to this VAT return. Now, when you come in here, the first thing I would recommend is to take a backup of the data. Even if you are just looking in here for figures, you're just calculating it to see what the liabilities might be, you have no intention of submitting, I would still say to take a backup. Okay, it's very easily done on the next window to accidentally click the Reconcile button. And unfortunately, even here at Sage, we do not have an undo button on the VAT return. So it's definitely recommended, even if you're just viewing it, to take that backup. Now I know that I just took a backup before the session, so I'm quite happy that I'm just going to be able to process, but like I say, for yourself, please do take that backup. It's also recommended to check the data, because if you've got errors in the data when you run the check data function, it can mean that you're reporting on figures that aren't quite correct. So make sure that if you do have any errors, that you click on the links to resolve those errors too. So next we're going to look at the date range. And again, UK and Ireland are exactly the same. We've got two different options. So immediately it's picking up 2 months, so it's recognizing I'm still currently in November, but I can change this quite easily to December. Now, for making tax digital, you need to make sure this matches the obligation period with HMRC. So if HMRC are expecting a 3-month return, you need to generate a 3-month return in your software. So previously what we did see was companies or businesses doing monthly returns and then adding the figures together and submitting the combined figures together. You can't do that under Making Tax Digital. This does need to match what HMRC are expecting. Okay, so I've got my 3 months in there, and you can see quite clearly it's showing me 3 months. But we do have the option here for a custom date range. And again, we get asked a lot, why would I have that feature there? Why would I actually use that function? So it might be if you're just calculating a liability for a particular period, you might have a particular date range you want to run it for to see what the liability would be without submitting, then you could use this feature here. So it might just be for your own facts and figures. In technical support, an example of when we have had to use that is when we had a leap year. And unfortunately, for some reason, our software didn't recognise the 29th of February. So we have had to use it for technical reasons in the past. And that's one of the reasons we may have used that before. But like I say, normally we'd recommend just to use the whole months and make sure it matches what you're submitting to HMRC or ROS. Now the next one is the Include Reconciled Transactions box. Now this particular box, why would we tick this? Bear with me one sec. Excuse me there. So this particular box, Include Reconcile Transactions, we quite often again get asked, why would I ever use this option? Why is it there? And again, for a day-to-day return, we wouldn't recommend that you tick that particular tick box. What we would recommend is you use that if you've maybe clicked reconcile in error and you need to rerun the return for that particular period. Now, it's not perfect because there are situations in which you might miss out transactions, which you'll see on the next screen. So again, it's not something I would say if you're doing a standard return for the first time for that period that you would tick that box. It's normally to resolve an issue or something that has gone wrong. Apologies there, I've got a frog just appearing in my throat there. I've just sent Michael off to go and get some water so we don't choke there. So apologies there. So next what we've got is the VAT verification steps. Now these are steps that are set into the VAT return to check your data for things that look odd. Okay, it's not saying they're wrong, it's just saying that they look a little bit strange and you might want to check these before submitting to HMRC. Now they are all set up by default to be switched on. So if we pop in settings, you can see what they are. And I'm just going to bring those across on the other screen, if I can just find my mouse again. And you can see the 8 settings there. Now it is possible to switch them off. You can switch ones off that aren't relevant to yourself, or you can leave them running. Now my recommendation is, if you're new to Sage and VAT, is to leave them on for the time being to try and get a feel for what it's highlighting for you first. And then slowly what you can do is start to switch off the ones that aren't maybe relevant to yourself and your business. It's not highlighting things that you must change. It's just saying check these over before you submit and be sure on those particular figures. It will add time onto the VAT return because it is running through checks on your data. So that is one reason why some people might select all and then clear all of them from running. But I'm going to leave them running today just to give you some demonstrations today of what it's trying to highlight for you. So I'm going to leave them on and we'll have a look at those on the next screen, step 2, once we've generated the return there. Now, I am going to calculate in just one moment. The main difference I want to point out here for Ireland is you do have 11 boxes rather than 5. And we're not really going to go into the individual boxes and tax codes that actually go into each of these. So don't worry. Again, most of this is still applicable to you regardless, but you will find that you've got 2 extra boxes on your VAT return and they're named slightly differently. So I'm going to click calculate. Now at this point in time, I'm not doing anything that's setting anything in stone. I'm just running a quick calculation so I can always come back from this particular point. What it's done though, is it's looked at that particular date range, October to December, and it's brought through all those transactions together. It's done the verification checks on them, but it's also looked prior to that period. So it's looked back prior to October for anything else that wasn't reconciled that it needs to sort of declare to HMRC. So it almost scoops them all up together and pops this into this window here. It might be that you don't ever get anything in here, okay? But again, I just want to give you some real life scenarios of what does tend to appear in here. And I've got 2 prime examples. So the first one I'm going to highlight is this one here. And this is a purchase invoice. And if you look at the date there, it's late September. Okay, now this will tend to happen more on your purchase invoices because it could be that your supplier creates an invoice and then it sits on their desk or in their email outbox for a couple of weeks before they actually send it on. By which point you might have done your VAT return, submitted it, declared it to HMRC, and you now receive that after that VAT return has been submitted. So we've got a late entry there. That's what we call them, late entries. And again, when we receive that, we do need to put the right date on it. We need to reflect real life. So the real life invoice did have 28th of September on, so we've popped it on as it came through, but it wasn't declared to HMRC, but now's our opportunity. The next one is this one here. And as you can see there in the details, there's a bit of a clue there. Okay, it's linking to another transaction. So what this other transaction was, 644, I'll give you a bit of information there. 644 was originally a purchase invoice, which we declared to HMRC. Now we've either made a change to that invoice or we've deleted it. But because it's been declared to HMRC, our software is trying to correct that with HMRC by processing a credit note to be picked up on this return. So what we're doing here is we're working through each transaction and sort of justifying its need to be in the VAT return. This one here is just an invoice that I've created late and I do actually need to enter into the software. So all of these are late entries or corrections. If you find something that's wrong in this window, then you do need to come out of the software and go and resolve it in the software first before you can continue, because the ignore and include options are all or nothing. So if I ignore, it will ignore all of them, including the ones I want to include. And if I include, it might include any that I didn't want to include. So you do need to work out from here which ones are correct. Now in this situation, I'm going to say that they're all fine. We've checked them over. We know what each of them is, and they do need to be declared to HMRC. So what I'm going to do is just click include, and that will include them in the figures there. Okay, so that takes us on to step 2 of the VAT return. And in here, we've got the figures that it's calculated automatically for me based on all of the transactions that I've processed. If I want to have a look at each of those figures, then I can. Any box that has the arrows is a drill down. So I can click into it. And this particular box, box 1, if I bring that across, it gives me a breakdown of the different transaction types contributing to that box and also the different tax codes as well. So if I did want to see a bit more detail on my sales invoices using a T1, I can drill down further. So I can actually go right down to transactional level. And that's great because I can then export that to Excel. Just bring it across there, sorry. So there's all my transactions. I can export that to Excel. I can do what I need to do outside of the software, manipulations, searches, etc., to find out a little bit more information about that. Okay, so I'm just going to close out of that. So that's the drill down if you're wanting to investigate your figures. But I do just want to show you some of the results of the verification check. So it's come up before from myself. So I can view these results. And it doesn't make you do anything to them. It just makes you view them. Okay, so it's not saying this is incorrect, go and delete it or go and check it over. It's just letting you view it and you can make your own decisions. You might decide straight away that transaction's fine. I know exactly why it's been flagged up. So in this situation here, it's got some possible missing entries. So what I've got here, if I click on view, is I've got 3 invoices in my invoices and credits module that are sitting there as not posted to the ledgers. Now, it might just be that I put the invoice on and it never actually went any further. We didn't actually send it to the customer. It could have been someone in the office maybe training on the invoice module and had practiced a couple of invoices. Or it could be that they're genuinely not updated to the ledgers. So if that was the case and they needed to be updated, what we'd need to do is go and update them. So I can export the list to Excel to give me a tick list to go through. Or in this case, I'm going to say, no, it was my colleague doing some tests. I'm fine. I'm happy that they're not updated to the ledgers. But if you do need to update them, you do need to come out of the whole VAT return, do your updates, and then recalculate the VAT return. And another one there is really interesting there to come through is the duplicate transaction. So a question has just come through there about possible duplicate transactions, but getting hundreds of them. And this is where you need to work out whether or not that particular check is actually working for your business. So some businesses won't have any duplicate transactions. Every transaction will be different. But then other businesses will have lots of transactions that are very similar. So particularly if you're on a subscription basis. So you might find that you might want to switch that particular check off because it might not be relevant to your business. It's just flagging up each and every transaction there. Purchase orders, so I do also have a purchase order that's been marked as delivered but not invoiced yet. So again, that's for me to cross-check. Has that been invoiced yet by that customer? Sorry, that supplier? Am I missing an invoice? Is it something that'll probably come in the next quarter and I'll be waiting for it then? In this case, again, I'm just going to assume they haven't invoiced me just yet. Yes, we've delivered it, but I haven't yet received, sorry, yes, we've received it, but I haven't yet received the invoice. So we've got the goods, but not the invoice. So I'm happy with that at the moment. What I am going to highlight, which I don't have one on here today, but it's a really common one that will get flagged up. And I do say don't worry too much about this one. And it's this one here. Sales and purchase transactions not using your most common tax code. So in these verification checks, you can set up one most commonly used tax code. Most of the time, it will be set up as T1. But the minute you use any other tax code, so T0, T2, T9, it will flag those up to say you're not using a T1. Now, I don't know a business in the world that only uses one tax code. So the minute you use a different tax code, it will flag them up. Just check they're on the right tax code. If you're happy that they are, then you can ignore them. So I'm happy with everything there. We're just going to move on to make adjustments. So it might be that you're in a situation where you need to make an adjustment to your VAT return. And normally this will be because HMRC have asked you to do so, your accountant has told you so, or you're on a specialist VAT scheme. This is not normally the way to go about fixing a transaction. Okay, so if a transaction's wrong, go and correct the transaction and the VAT return will be impacted down the line once you come to do the VAT return for that particular transaction. But if you do have something that you do need to make an actual adjustment to the VAT return directly, we have the make adjustments option. And this allows us to adjust several of the boxes on the VAT return. So I'll just show you one box. I'm going to just show you box one. So as you can see, at the moment it's calculated as 1,620. I'm going to pop an adjustment in for 100. Bring that over. I do need to put a reason in, so it might be HMRC or ROS in Ireland instruction. And I'm going to pop the adjustment in for 100. And it could be a negative figure as well, depending on what they've asked you to do. So I'm just going to save that. And what you can see there is my reported figure has now changed to 1,720 instead. So that's how to add an adjustment. What we can do, if you've got documentation to support that, it could be an email from your accountant or HMRC, you can click on add attachments and you can supply that supporting documentation. So if someone's picking this up down the line, it could be 2 or 3 years down the line, they've got that document to hand, nice and easy. Now, what does happen when you create an adjustment in this way is it does post a journal in the background of your software when you click Reconcile VAT Return. So that's why it's not the best course of action if you've got a transaction to fix. So, you know, I've had in the past customers say, I got to this point and realized I've missed off an invoice, so I just did an adjustment. It's not really the best way to resolve it. So I would always say if you've got to this point, you need to come out of the return, enter the transaction or correct the transaction, then calculate again. That's the best course of action. Now, in addition, we've got VAT reports. We can print the VAT return. We've got several different formats of VAT return that you can print, and also some reconciliation reports. Now, we're not going to go into those today because we do have a whole session on reconciliation reports that we run. So we won't be covering those today, but just so you can see, that's where you would run your reports for checking your figures and making sure everything is included on the VAT return that should be. So that's the VAT return reports, and we've got reconciliation reports as well, which is dependent on your VAT scheme that you're using. Okay, so we're at the point now where we need to use the button that is going to set everything in stone. So we've got the option to reconcile the VAT return. Now, once we click this button, there isn't a point of return, unfortunately. Okay, so this is where I always say make sure you're 100% happy and make sure you've got that backup. So I am going to click on return, reconcile return, and it will depend on how much data you've got included on that return as to how long that would take you to do. It might take a little while. It might be a case of going grabbing a cup of tea while that runs through, but as you can see, mine's going to go through pretty quickly. Now it's seeing when it's looked at my data that I've popped that adjustment on, and it's asking me now if I want to pop that attachment on. I'm going to say no because I want to show you where you can add it on at a later point as well. Then it asks me if I want to flag them as VAT reconciled, so I need to click yes to that. That sets them all in stone, and that moves us on to step 3 of the VAT return. And this is really tying up all of the loose ends that have been created by the VAT return. So I'm just going to go through those. And I'm going to skip past submitting because I'm going to come to that at the very, very end of the session there. First of all, VAT transfer. Now, this is something that some people are doing manually, and that's completely fine. You can continue to do so. There's no obligation for you to use this feature. However, I do like to highlight how easy it is. So what this does is your sales tax control amount, which was 1620 before the adjustment, is picked up in here. Your purchase tax amount, which is from box 4, is picked up here. And what it's going to do is it's going to move those values out of the liability sales tax control accounts and purchase tax control accounts onto your liability account, ready for payment to HMRC or ROS. So it is normally a set of 4 journals, which you need to remember dates, nominal codes, where to debit, where to credit, and that's where I always go wrong, is get my debits and my credits mixed up. So at the click of one button, post journal, it takes care of all 4 of them for me, so I don't need to worry about it. Also ties it up nicely, it ticks it to say it's transferred, and I know that the job's been done. Skipping past submitting, once you've paid HMRC or ROS, you can record that in your software too. Now, if this was in fact a refund, then what this wording would say would be post bank receipt instead. So it's again clever enough to recognise whether I need to post a payment or a receipt transaction. It is key to note that when I post this payment in the software, it will not pay HMRC or ROS unless I have that set up through either e-banking or through supplier payments. So just bear that in mind. If you haven't set them up, it won't be sending the payment automatically on your behalf. So I'm just going to pick any date and post bank payment again. It's going to post the bank payment transaction. It's easy to do manually, but at the tick of a button, I can mark the whole thing as paid too. We also have the ability to add attachments now. So if I didn't have them to hand when I was initially doing the return, I can add the attachment there now as well. So submitting is obviously something you need to do regardless of being in the UK or Ireland. in the UK, submitting online is direct from the software into the HMRC portal, and I'm going to show you a short video on that in just a moment or two. But if you're in the Republic of Ireland, it is a form that you will need to download, but it's downloading it into a CSV format, which is the correct format for then uploading onto ROS. So yours is a two-step process at the moment. If you had then done it, you can tick to say it's marked as submitted. With Making Tax Digital, however, you will need to click the Submit Online button, and it will go through that submission process. Now I'm going to show you that now. There's a 2-minute video that I'm just going to demonstrate. So again, apologies, this is just for those who are in the UK under Making Tax Digital. But when you come back, we'll have a quick look at the transactions posted as a result of the VAT return, and then we'll do a quick summary before we finish up there. So 2 minutes of your time if you're in the Republic of Ireland, and then we'll be back with something a bit more relevant to yourselves in a moment.
Okay, so here is an example of a Making Tax Digital submission. For the purposes of this submission, we are going to do a date for the 1st of April 2017 to the 30th of June 2017, and that is just to match the test submission portal with HMRC. Once we click Submit Online, it tells us about Making Tax Digital, and then it will pull through the company details that we have entered in settings and then company preferences. So shouldn't need to change anything at this point. So at this point it communicates with HMRC and it wants authority for Sage to interact with HMRC on your behalf. Here it may ask you to enter a 6-digit code that they may send to your mobile phone or via telephone call, and you may also need to confirm your identity. Next, you need to use your user ID and password for the government gateway to log into your account. So once we're logged in, we need to grant the authority, and it should hold on to that information for the next 18 months. Next, what it's going to do is communicate with HMRC to look for your obligation period. So it's basically looking to see what period are we submitting for. This needs to match the period that we have created the return for in Sage. As you can see, this does. So in this case, I'm going to tick the box for the HMRC declaration and click Submit to HMRC. And this may take a moment or two to go through, but I should get a message once that's successfully submitted. Once done, I can close, and I may then want to confirm that that submission has been successful. So to do this, we can see under the Submit to HMRC section, we have an option to click on the submission confirmation. And this will give us a report which will contain the correlation ID and also details of the submission we have sent to HMRC.
Okay, so that was just a video showing that demonstration process, and like I say, once it's been submitted successfully, that's when you will get the correlation ID, that is your sort of receipt number, and that will show in your software for your records as well. So I just wanted to show you the transactions that appear as a result of doing a VAT return. So first of all, we mentioned on those final 3 steps, the final 3 steps of step 3, that we have posted some transactions as a result of doing those steps there, so the tidy up routines. But first of all, we have also posted an adjustment. So I mentioned on step 2 that posting a manual adjustment does post a transaction in the background. So that adjustment for £100 has done a journal between VAT liability, in my case 2202, and my manual adjustments nominal code, which is 2204. So you can see there the 2 journals, and they're quite clearly marked to show that they're linking to a VAT return and which VAT return that is. We then got the 4 journals I mentioned. So yes, you can do them manually. There's no problem with that at all. However, at the click of the button, it's done all 4 of these for me. So nice and easy. And then the last one was the VAT payment. So we marked it as paid to HMRC. You can see the VAT payment is there. So it's posted all of those and tidied it up really nicely. Okay, so just going to pop back onto the PowerPoint. keep the questions coming there. I think there's a few final ones coming over. The team have done really well to keep on top of them there. So just pop into a little summary around the penalties, etc. Okay, so just want to briefly talk to you about some of the penalties. And there is going to be a new penalty system applying from the 1st of January. So giving you a little bit of a heads up here, there's going to be 2 different penalties. We're going to have a late submission penalty and also a late payment penalty as well. Now the late submission penalty is points based, and those points are going to be applied automatically. Okay, so it will be as soon as there's a late submission, immediately points will be applied to your account. So just to go into a little bit more detail on each of those penalty systems. So the late submission penalty, like I said, a point is going to be applied each time your submission deadline is missed. So if you are new to Making Tax Digital, that could be as early as your first return. But if you're on a monthly basis, once you reach 5 points, then you'll get a penalty of £200. If you're on a quarterly basis, 4 points, so it'd be 4 submissions before a penalty would be applied, and annual, it would be 2 points before a penalty will be applied. So plenty of time for you to get yourself sorted, but obviously you don't want to fall foul of any penalties there. And then we do also have the late payment penalty, which is a little bit more complicated. So if you do pay up to 15 days late, at the moment there's no penalty. If you pay between 16 and 30 days late, you're going to have to pay 2% of the amount due as a penalty. From day 31, it's 2% of what was due on day 15 and 2% of the amount due on day 30. And then from day 31 onwards, you're going to be starting to get a 4% penalty on the outstanding amount applied on a daily basis. So bear that in mind. And there is also interest applied on top of that as well. So just something to consider. Right, so just to summarise, my top tip is always take a backup, even if you are just looking at the VAT return. You must make sure that the date range you enter matches the obligation period set with HMRC, in particular for Making Tax Digital. Use those verification checks to your advantage. Okay, so use the ones that are relevant to your business. And if you find one's really not working for you, then you can switch them off. Remember, manual adjustments shouldn't be used for transactional corrections. Just correct the transaction. That journal will be posted in the background, and then you'll have to start moving figures around in the background, which again, it's not an easy process. And then finally, use those final steps on that final window to move the balances to the correct location and mark everything as paid as well. Okay, so I mentioned our webinars later today. So Tina is doing 2 o'clock. She's going to do some festive messaging. So it might be that you want to send something out to your customers, suppliers, just thanking them for their service, or it may be that unfortunately we're going to have to be issuing some indicators of price changes, discounts, things like that to get people through the sort of cost of living crisis at the moment. So it might be you need to be communicating with your customers in some way. So today's a great session on looking at the letters feature. And then we've got Michael this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and he's looking at aged reports. So again, thinking around cost of living, you might be wanting to sort of rein in what's actually owed to you, and the age reports are a great way of looking at where all of your liabilities are held and your assets are held as well. So great way of looking at how to get paid on time. So if you do want to join those, there will be a link in the follow-up email today for you to sign up for them. While the final questions are just coming through there, just quickly talk to you about Sage membership. Now, all of this that we're about to discuss is again free to you as a Sage customer. So you do have access to Sage training on Sage University. So you can find that on sageu.com. You can access things like certification on payroll and accounts. There's lots of training available on there, and there's also information on Making Tax Digital as well. So if you haven't yet done one, you want to find out even more, there is lots on there on sageu.com. Just get yourself registered and you can access the free content on there. Sage City is our online forum, but we also have a location on there where we host some of our previous questions, we host recordings, and we show you some of the upcoming registrations as well for our webinars. So please do check out Sage City as well. It is also a great place for submitting your ideas for future versions of the software too. And then we've got the Sage Masterclass. So Sage Masterclass, we're in season 2 now. Season 2 is all around productivity, but season 1 was all around finding and keeping great people. And what we've got there is we've got some keynote speakers who've provided us with some video content, and they talk through different topics that you as a business that might be facing at the moment. So if you do want to check those out again, they are free of charge at sage.com/UK/masterclass. Okay, so that brings us towards the end of the session there. Thankfully, my voice has held up. I thought we were losing it for a moment there. Do apologise for that. I think the questions are almost all answered, but I'll just give it a few moments there. Just see if there's any I can pick up there. I think they're all being answered at the moment. So I'll just put myself on mute for just a moment, but we'll be back before we end the session. If you are leaving in the meantime, though, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you at 2 o'clock today. But if not, we will have another set of webinars next week as well. So just check out what we've got coming over the next few weeks. Quick question there about the recording. There is already one available on our recordings page. So I'm just going to show you where you can find any previous recordings. Also, we'll just show you how you can access the current content as well. So if I just pop into my software to show you this, I'm going to pop into Help and then Help Center. So within the software, what this is going to do is launch the Help Center from within my software. And in here, first of all, you've got to manage your VAT section. So if you are new to all of this, feeling a little bit overwhelmed, there's a lot of information online. But what we can do is we can type in the word webinars. I'll try and spell correctly today. And within here, you can see our report design webinars, which are really popular. Webinars for Stage 50. So this is where you can find out what we've got coming over the next few weeks and get yourself registered. And we've got the webinar recordings. Now, unfortunately, my links aren't working at the moment, but within there, if you find webinar recordings, you will be able to see a list of all of our previous sessions, not just our VAT ones. You can watch them in your own time when it suits you as well. And all of our content, if it's a new session, will be added to there within 2 hours of us running the session. So get yourself onto the Help Centre there. So it's within your software or sage.co.uk/help. Okay, so I think that's it for the questions. So we'll draw the session to an end. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you join us today. And again, we do hope to see you on another session really soon. We've got some really good content coming out over the December period. So we hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.